Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Unscripted Coding. In Unscripted Coding, we just start on a project without any planning whatsoever. You're going to see mistakes, you're going to see 180s, you're going to see design choices made on the fly. So if you're looking for a neat, tidy tutorial video, this is not it. What this is just watching the process go. Today, our topic is Microsoft Word. And in particular, I have a very specific task in mind, and I don't know how many of you have ever used the cross-reference function in Microsoft Word, but it's relatively new to me, and it is both incredibly useful, but also really difficult to use. So what I'm hoping to do is to write some code to make this easier. So first of all, let me explain what we're doing, what cross-references are. Suppose you have an ordered list, a numbered list. So this is just the numbered feature right here. Everyone who uses Word should know it. And you can start writing different things into the list, and it just starts with the next number and the next number. Right now, I have a decimal. I think that's just the last setting that I used on it, so ignore that. But we have a couple translations of hello, bonjour. I'm not even going to try and pronounce the Arabic. And in another section, go down here, we have in section 1.3, we have the French translation available. If you're thinking this is like a legal document, you're absolutely right. I'm thinking, say, a non-disclosure agreement or a confidentiality agreement. You have all of these sections, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, and then later on in the document, you'll see in section 1.1, we defined this as that. In section 2.3, we said this. In section 3, we said this. Despite what it says in section 3, do this instead. So legal documents, this happens a lot. And when I started drafting it, I would just type it in section 1.3. The problem is, what happens if you add something? Say Japanese here. Section 1.3 is pointing to the Arabic translation, not the French. And, you know, it's fine here. We have the one reference, we'll make that change. But if you have a 10, 50, 100 page legal document, updating each of those is a massive headache, and you're probably going to miss a few or make mistakes anyways. This is where cross references is incredibly helpful. So if you go cross-reference, I have my cursor right here, cross-reference, we look at numbered item reference lists. So these are the numbered items. You have different options as well, but let's go with the numbered items. And then we reference the paragraph number. And you insert it. Oh, that's wrong. We want 1.4. Okay. And there you have it. We have something inserted by Microsoft Word. And so if I were to remove this one, oh, you know what? Let's go here first. If we click the link, it jumps to 1.4. If I remove this, the Japanese translation, the link is still valid, and we can actually update the field. And I think there's a button somewhere where you can update them all at once. So very clear what the benefit is. The problem is nobody ever does insert cross-references. When I get a document, it is always in this format, and I don't blame them, because that is exactly how I would do it too. I didn't learn about this cross-reference thing until very recently. My hope, my idea here is, I'm hoping there's some way to automate this process. Most people understand the ordered list. You will have the occasional individual that'll do this, type out each of the numbers, make sure Microsoft Word doesn't auto do it, and then they'll put 1.2. There's no cure for that. That's too difficult. But what I want to do is take these numbered lists and automatically create references. And so the logic is going to be pretty simple. I look for all of the numbered lists in the document, run through them one at a time, and I will search up the value of it. So in this case, 1.1. You would go through the long document and hit somewhere. 1.1 is a bad idea, but let's say we get to 1.3. We're going through the document and we hit in section 1.3. The value is 1.3. We did basically a control F, find 1.3, and then we highlight it, and then we replace it with this cross-reference. And so I don't know how we're going to do this. Part of me has already thought the developer tab in Word. This is not normally enabled right away. So if you don't see a developer tab, go on Google, find out how do you enable the developer tab. It's somewhere in the files and options. I would show you guys, but that shows all of my recent files and such as well. So it is kind of hidden in there. So just do a Google search and you'll find some detailed information. And so you can write a macro. Alternatively, I was thinking we might be able to throw this into Python, JavaScript, some sort of library. Python has a number of libraries that handle Word documents, but they're not really fleshed out, in my opinion. You'll be able to do all the typing, but I wonder if they will have an obscure feature like cross-reference. So I hate writing macros. Like, I never learned the language really, so it will be a struggle, and you will watch me struggle if I decide to go that route. So my preference is Python, but I have a sneaking suspicion that these cross-references aren't going to be built into a lot or any of the libraries. And so I might take a quick look and see if there's JavaScript libraries or other libraries that might be able to help me out on this. But sadly, I did enable the developer tab because I suspect that's where I'm going to have to go. Okay, that's enough. The TLDR is we're going to run through all of the ordered lists, search for the values, and then replace these with cross-references to that numbered list. Hopefully this all works. I haven't planned this out. I'm not even sure if it is even possible. So be prepared. This is going to be a bit of a slog, I think. We got a great gift from Variatus on Stack Overflow. He basically handed us a huge chunk of what we need to do. I will be going through it a little later. To be honest, VBA is painful to look at. I just have no clue what I'm looking at. So it'll take me a bit of time to just work through the logic here and figure out what it is. But before that, I just wanted to show two things. Two quick things. Word options. This is in File, and then you click on the left-hand side over here. Once you click File, Options. I would show you, but there's like a list of a history of files, so I don't really feel like sharing that. But in the word options, really important are two things. First, the customize ribbon. This is where you can add and remove the developer tab. That is so important. If you don't have it enabled, you need to enable it so that you can see, use, and edit those macros. The other thing is also under here, customize ribbons, keyboard shortcuts. So Variatus has created this awesome little script here, this macro, in which you would go to the document, highlight, say 1.1, and then you run the macro and it'll automatically cross-reference to 1.1, the paragraph, the numbered listing, the one that corresponds with 1.1. So, it's really not fun if you have to click into a developer tab into that macro menu. What you want to do is do a keyboard shortcut. So over here, we click customize. You scroll down all the way to macros, and you'll see that we have his cross-reference generator. Click here and you just create a keyboard shortcut. Here, I think Control-Alt-R for reference. Oops. Control-R. Huh. What am I doing wrong here? R. Huh. Okay, we'll go with Control-Shift-R. Is Alt not an appropriate one? I am unsure, but we will assign it that way. So cross-reference generator, now we can do Control-Shift-R, and that makes it infinitely easier. So let's do 1.1 is the English translation, and with his handy macro, we can just highlight 1.1 and go Control-Shift-R, and there you have it. It goes straight to the hello here. Okay, so the next step is to see if we can kind of reverse that process, drive it from these headings instead of from the text. So we go from the headings and then we link it to text that is the same. The other thing that I did notice, actually today at work, not while I was looking at this, but so you'll see that I am actually using this cross-reference thing. If we have sub tabs, it's not a great example, but let's move this to A. Okay. Oh, no, that's not good. In the second level, we go AI, okay? So if we were trying to reference a hello, this formatting is horrendously ugly, but if I want to make a reference to A, it's exactly the same as before. We go into references, cross-reference, we go hello, paragraph number, insert, that's fine. But what if we wanted to say AI? So this isn't a great example of how it's spelled, but in a lot of legal texts, you have something like this. If I were to use a cross-reference on goodbye and just paragraph number, oh, look at that. They gave me AI. I was going to say you need the paragraph number with full context to do it. Oh, I see. So in this case, if we want ASDF, we go full context. It'll give us that whole... I'm making all sorts of silly mistakes right now. We get the one AI. That is really nice. Whereas if I were to go down here and do just the paragraph number, I don't get the whole reference there. Okay, so we want to ensure that we get the full context, because if I were to just search up I, later on, I might have another one under here that wouldn't correspond to anything. So if I go to text and there is just one AI, it'll go to this one, and then further down, when we loop down to LKASJDF, it'll tie back again to this one. So not really great unless you have that whole context. we're coming to an end of this project. I've taken it reasonably far, given that I really had no clue what I was doing with VBA, and that became more and more apparent as I went through with it. All of these functions I am just absolutely not familiar with, and so I was actually surprised at how difficult this was. But nevertheless, somebody handed us half the solution, and we're able to take another, say, quarter of the way there. I say that because there are some very notable bugs that you are going to have to navigate around. So first of all, I'm going to put this up on GitHub, and you can see it in the description of this video. And so you can load it into your macro, and you can make changes accordingly. And I recommend you do that. So the first bug is something that even the original person who answered the Stack Overflow alluded to, and that is that these numbers are very dependent on how you write it, how you present it. And so right now we have this format of 1, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3.1, and you know, it's fairly predictable. It's very tight and obvious how the next set of numbers is going to look, and you can go far deep into this. So well past, say, 26 alphabets, you can have an infinite amount of bullet points, and you'll just have 1.3.9999999 to organize your list. So it's very predictable, it's very obvious, and you can search through it. That's not true if you have the standard, 1AI type of notation. What happens if you go past the 26 characters? I think the traditional way is 1.AA, 1.BB, or 1 bracket BB, 1 bracket CC, and so on. What happens if you get past 52 characters or 78 characters? And the question goes on. It's not predictable. But not only that, but even if you just have 1A, that's usually how I would write it, but somebody might just put 1A or 1A or 1A, 1A, something like that. And so not a very predictable pattern, and you're going to have to account for that because Microsoft Word will have that notation for you, 1A, but whoever is writing text in, say, your legal document or whatever you're drafting, they may not adhere to the same standard. So that's caveat number one. The second one is actually quite a big bug or oversight that I plan to address differently. And that is that it searches from the bottom of the list and moves its way up. Let me just move these. So that it is more obvious that they're staggered. There. Okay, so what do I mean? Well, you'll see, if I just highlight here, that we have two cross-referenced. 1.21 is an oh, actually, no, it's not an existing one, but let's look here. 1.2. 1.2 should go to here. And yet, if I click into it, it goes to sentences. And the reason it's doing that is because this loop here, going through I and going through reference list I, it's going backwards from the bottom of your reference list, 2.1 to 1.4, 1.311, going upwards, backwards. And it's searching for these pieces. So let's say you hit 2. It goes down this entire document and goes 1.1, 1.2. Oh, there's number 2. We're going to create a cross-reference here. And then it takes it out of the search. Ideally, it would skip this and realize there are pieces on either side. We should move up until we hit 1.2 or 1.2.1 or whatever matches up with this. So the logic isn't very good. I think one way of doing this, and very hyper specific to this document, is to identify that if there are still numbers on either side, or even characters on either side, then that is not an appropriate solution. Periods on either side, numbers on either side, but it should accept, say, a comma or a space, and that would denote kind of it binds that reference left and right, and so that's one way of doing it. The other way, which I am planning to do, is that we have a very specific notation. It's always section space 1.3 in our documents, and you can use regular expressions to find. I only want to find things that are after section, exactly one space afterwards, and that is kind of the bounds, the upper and lower, or the left and right bounds of that text. Again, I'm going to leave this code available on GitHub for you guys to fiddle with, because I think this is hyper situational. You want to figure out how to create boundaries for your number so you can search it properly. Where do I want to go here? Another more theoretical way, if I was doing it in a language I'm more comfortable with, one might be to take this list of this reference list and search by the longest string first. So 1.3.11 should not overlap with anything, and then you work your way backwards through the list in some fashion like that. You start with the longest, end with the shortest. You might want to choose numbers in a certain way. That seems like an algorithmic solution. I haven't fully fleshed that idea out yet. Now that I'm saying it out loud, I think there would be problems with it, but I don't think it's a bad way to go. More likely, though, you want some sort of search function where you can incorporate regular expressions. Now, if you're using this for some other use case, I'm doing cross-references. Again, this is already a hyper-specific use case, but one of the issues was that how we took results out of the document was using this weird show field code thing. So if you guys just zoomed through and didn't want to watch through all of this, what happens is I start this document right away and hide all of these references and use a reference code instead. And so when you search, say 1.3.1, you're not going to see anything because the document isn't listing it. But at the very end, I set it back to false so that, well, originally you would have 1.3.1, and then once you put the reference in, you get this weird thing instead. So it takes it out of the possible search results. And so you're taking it out as you go. And then at the very end, you make it visible. You make these numbers visible again after you've taken out those results. So with all of those caveats, let's just walk through what we did. It's surprisingly short, and again, this was quite difficult for me. All of these were new concepts, and I don't think a lot of people use cross-references, and even fewer are creating macros for cross-references. So it was hard to figure out how to use these. But let's go through. We set out our variables with the active document. So whatever is in focus, this is a macro meant to be stored on your computer and not following the document. We first turn off all of those cross-references. So they show that weird curly brace reference code instead of the text. We click the home key so that it goes to the top of the document because we're going to search through the document several times. we get this reference list, which uses this get cross-reference items function, and it just gives you a list of all of these. 1.1, well, it would say 1.1 hello, 1.2 sabah akhnoor. That was terrible, and not even right, but it goes through this giant list and gives it and puts it into an array. And then we loop through that array. Once again, every time we loop, we jump to the top of the list. We search the reference number. First of all, we trim the white space on either side, and then we split it so that we only want the 1.1, 1.2. We don't care about the text that follows it. So that's what reference number is. And now we search through the document. We go through, and every time we search, execute, and we find something, we just replace it with a cross-reference. And all it is this insert cross-reference function. It's basically all of the settings that were available here. And of course, we replace the text here. No, that's not true. That is the reference item. But we just create that cross-reference. Afterwards, we loop through until we find no more results, and then we end that selection. And then we go on to the next item on this list. It works backwards, so we go to sentences. And then once again, it does all that trimming, so we get 2. And then we find insert cross-references. And then at the very end, once we get through all of these, we just switch those curly brace reference codes back into the numbers that are human-friendly, human-readable. And that's all there is to it. I don't know how many lines of code that is. By my eye, it's about 40 or so, and 44 lines. It's tough. I don't know anyone who enjoys working with VBA, so I'm going to chalk it up to that. And good luck. I hope this code is useful, because I think a lot of people do spend a lot of time doing things in Excel that is monotonous, that takes time, and hopefully this will show you that there are ways for you to get rid of, to make these tasks automated. Anyways, thanks for watching. If you have any comments, please leave them below. And if you like the video, please subscribe or click the thumbs up button. Thanks.